Vänligen ta era platser. Programmet börjar om 1 minut. During the following hour, we will discuss Europe under pressure. By supporting Ukraine, we do support our own security, but can we cope with an extended war? The economic situation in Europe is distressing. Weak economies in several member countries, innovation and competitiveness lagging behind since many years. On top of that, recent events revealed President Trump's indifference to world order, leaving us squeezed behind two superpowers who want to rule the world with power alone. Will the EU be able to stick together? Is there enough military, economic and political readiness? And what options do we have? It's a great honor to welcome Andrius Kubilius, Commissioner for Defense and Space. Welcome.
Your Majesty, Royal Highness, Prime Minister, Ministers, dear all, dear organizers, thanks a lot for inviting me. In this panel, we shall talk about Europe under pressure. And you asked me to say a few words about Europe's resolve in the age of uncertainty. From the very beginning of my mandate, I have repeated that we are facing two challenges: the Russian threat and possibility of American withdrawal towards the Indo-Pacific. Today, Russia's military budget in purchasing power parity terms is 85% of defense spending of all the EU member states. And there are no signs that Putin will go for peace. Even if peace will be established, he will continue with a war economy. The United States officially is asking us to be ready to take all the responsibility for the conventional defense of Europe, and we cannot disagree with such a request. That is why from the very beginning of our mandate, we started the whole agenda of Defense Readiness 2030, because we understood that Europe is under pressure of defense challenges, and that we need to go for a big bang in defense. At that time, still there was no United States national security strategy, no Venezuela, and no threats to Greenland. Now it is even more clear that we need to build Europe's independence, as Commission President repeated during the whole last year. That is not very new. Commission President Juncker, President Macron, Chancellor Merkel were speaking very similar words 10 years ago after the Russian occupation of Crimea, that Europe must be more independent and autonomous, that we must overcome industrial fragmentation, and that we must have interoperability. And knew that we need to have an European army. But it did not materialize. Now is the time to deliver. Because as Chancellor Merz recently said, the times, I quote, the times of Pax Americana is over. End of quote. Defense independence means that we need to be defense ready inside NATO, but with much less American presence in Europe. Uncertainty of the future of the transatlantic partnership demands our resolve. Defense readiness of Europe, in my view, has three major pillars. First, material defense readiness, money, production, weapons. Second, institutional defense readiness. How to organize ourselves in the defense of Europe, especially if the Americans will shift from Europe. And the third, political defense readiness. The will to deter and defend, if need be, to fight. And we need to understand that if one pillar fails, the whole defense readiness will fail also. During last year, during 2025, we focused our attention mainly on material defense readiness. And we managed to achieve quite a lot with new money, safe loans, and pledges on 5% defense spending, with a new strategy on material defense readiness, white paper and defense readiness roadmap, and with the new policies, European Defense Industry Program, also called EDIP, Defense Readiness or Simplification Omnibus, Communication on Defense Industry Transformation, and the Military Mobility Package. There are a lot of big positive things which are happening and will happen with our material defense readiness. But I will not go into too much of details of that. We need to remember, and General Grinkiewicz have said, that we need to remember that more money alone does not bring everything we need for defense readiness. As experts make clear, just pouring more money on all defense structures will not bring the needed qualitative transformation of our defense, and we shall not build our defense independence. Joseph Borrell was the first who called our existing national military forces bonsai armies. We need to start to invest our money in such a way that we would be able to fight as Europe, not just as a collection of 27 national bonsai armies. So what else must we do besides a big bang in defense money in order to make more radical progress? My answer, we need to start to look much more deeply into the problems of our institutional defense readiness. And that is why we need an intellectual big bang in order to bring new ideas and bold decisions. Lack of unity is our problem. That is why, first of all, we need to answer a very simple question. Would the United States be militarily stronger if they would have 50 armies on the state level instead of single federal army, 50 state defense policies and defense budgets on the state level, instead of a single federal defense policy and budget? If our answer is no, America would not become stronger, then what are we waiting for? Our citizens have a very clear answer. A recent publication in Politico, just last week, shows that in Spain, Belgium, Germany, in some other countries, around 70% of citizens prefer defense of their country by an European army instead of a national army, 10%, or NATO, 12%. Europe under pressure demands more unity, and unity comes with institutional changes. In such times, we should not run away from the most pressing questions on our institutional defense readiness. First question, if the Americans will shift from Europe, how do we create an European pillar of NATO? Who will be the European security? What's about European command and control capabilities? European headquarters? Most importantly, how we will replace, in that case, the 100,000 strong American standing military force, which is the backbone military force in Europe. Who will form our European standing backbone military force? Germans? A collection of 27 bonsai armies? Armies that look nice, but are cut down, shrunk, clipped? Or as Jean-Claude Juncker, Emmanuel Macron, Angela Merkel already proposed 10 years ago, and are supported today by experts and Europeans, the creation of powerful standing European military force of 100,000 troops. Second question, how can we create a true European Defence Union, which is the task in my mission letter I received as a start of my mandate? Should it include the United Kingdom and Norway? Should it include Ukraine, its military forces, its defense industry, its battle-tested experience? Third question, how can European defense industry be really defragmented? What united political leadership is needed for that? How can pan-European defense projects be developed in the most effective way, which is until now has been almost impossible? And fourth question, how can the European Union be ready to implement Article 42.7 of the European Union Treaty on the obligation of mutual assistance for member states which face an armed aggression? Who will coordinate us in the case of such a crisis? All these and similar questions are related to our institutional defense readiness. Until now, and also during the last decade, we were not able to put into practice our institutional ideas about our defense. Why? Why not? In my opinion, because we lack a proper united leadership platform to discuss the most important European defense issues. And the answer? My personal suggestion to use more intensively the positive experience with the informal E5+ platform for such strategic discussions. In my view, it would be important to upgrade and formalize such kind of platform into the format of a European Security Council. The idea of an European Security Council was proposed and discussed already between 2017 and 2019 by President Macron and Angela Merkel, then Chancellor of Germany. Angela Merkel in 2018 called for the establishment of an European Security Council with rotating membership in which important decisions could be more swiftly prepared. That is exactly what is now very much needed. The European Security Council could be composed of key permanent members, along with several rotational members, including the member states with the Council presidency, plus the leadership of the EU, Commission and Council presidents, and when discussing broader European security, also the United Kingdom. In total, around 10, 12 members with the task to discuss the most important issues in defense, some of which I just mentioned before. And not only discussing, but also swiftly preparing important decisions. I believe it's now an urgent task to turn this idea into reality. And the first task for such an European Security Council would be Ukraine. For the time being, there are no signs that Putin will agree with the peace plan. In this case, simply continuing the same level of our support to Ukraine risks deterioration of Ukraine's situation, and ultimately risks that Putin will prevail. We need to have a clear answer. How is the European Union going to change that scenario? And this is the reason why we need to have an European Security Council now. And let me conclude with a few words about our political defense readiness, our political will to fight. As you know, I am from Lithuania. And Sweden is a godmother or godfather of our independence, of our membership of the EU, and even membership of NATO. We will never forget the Baltic Freedom Mondays in Stockholm. We will never forget 7,000 people protesting in Stockholm after Soviet tanks attacked our TV tower in Vilnius and 14 people were killed on the 13th of January 1991. This week exactly 35 years ago. And on the day of the protest, for the first time since the end of the Second World War, all the church bells in Stockholm were ringing in solidarity. We heard the bells ringing across the sea. And half a year later, you were among the first to recognize our independence. This is what political defense readiness is about. Standing together as a nation and as Europeans, and together with Ukraine. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Commissioner Kubilius. We just have time for one or two short questions. You're talking about a big bang in defense, but also a big bang in politics, an intellectual big bang even. Do you think there is enough political readiness to go from, as you call it, 27 bonsai national armies to one united European strong army?
Well, first of all, let's go for Security Council in order to have a proper platform to discuss such issues. Because in my view, now the problem is that we are not discussing. It would be good to start to discuss because challenges really are big, and it would be very bad if we would not start to prepare ourselves for different situations. Now, at least European citizens, as I have shown now data from published opinion polls, they are ready to see much more of European defense on European continent, including even European military force.
So when starting then with the Security Council, what do you, in your opinion, what are the greatest obstacles to obtain such a sort of institution organization today?
Well, first of all, of course, each change demands political will and understanding what are the problems which we need to resolve now. In my view, really, the challenge now is to have a proper, what I call intellectual big bang, to discuss big ideas not only on material side of our defense readiness, but also on institutional side of defense readiness. And especially having in mind that during next years or decade situation on the European continent with our defense can become very different if Americans really will start to shift to Indo-Pacific. So let's be open for such a perspective, and let's be open to discuss what does it mean for us. And let's not wait when that will happen and we shall not be ready. Let's be ready now. And Europe, I do not see the reasons why Europe really not take seriously this task to become independent and able to defend itself, taking responsibility on its own shoulders.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Kubilius. Thank you. Ja, en